I remember the exact way he said it. Not angry. Not sad. Just final. We're broke this year. No vacation. No explanation. No discussion. Just a sentence that closed the door. I nodded like I understood. Like it didn't sting. Like I hadn't already packed my bag and set it by the door. My suitcase stayed there for days. No one mentioned it. No one told me to unpack. That night I heard my siblings whispering in the other room. Their voices were low, excited. Places. Clothes. Plans. I told myself I must be wrong. I told myself money really was tight. I told myself this was just how life worked. I believed him because trusting your parent feels safer than doubting them. I believed him. Right up until the airport showed me the truth. The trip was supposed to be family. At least that's what it used to mean. Before, vacations were talked about at the dinner table. Dates, places, small arguments about where to go. This time there was no discussion. It ended in minutes. Flights were too expensive. Hotels were out of the question. Money was tight. Those words came up only once. After that, the topic disappeared. But the house didn't feel like people who weren't going anywhere. Suitcases started showing up. Clothes were laid out on beds. Whispers replaced open talk. Everyone else was still packing. Just not around me. I told myself it must be cheaper without one extra ticket. I told myself this was what being understanding looked like. I told myself I was being mature. I didn't realize I wasn't being mature. I was being quietly removed. That was my first mistake. After that talk I started paying attention. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Being broke only showed up when I asked for something. A school trip. A birthday dinner. New clothes before an event. The answer was always the same. Not this time. Maybe later. We can't afford it. But later never came. Somehow there was always money for other things. New shoes appeared in the hallway. Packages arrived with my siblings' names on them. Plans were made when I wasn't in the room. I learned the rules without anyone explaining them. Don't ask twice. Don't complain. Don't make it awkward. So I stopped talking about what I wanted. I stopped getting excited too early. I stopped expecting fairness. I told myself this was normal. That families aren't perfect. That money stress changes people. But deep down I knew the truth felt different. This wasn't about money running out. It was about effort running out. When it came to me, I wasn't meant to see them. That's the part that still feels unreal. I was at the airport for a different reason. Different day. Different plan. Nothing to do with their trip. The place was loud, busy, and cold. People rushing. Announcements echoing. Everyone focused on where they were going. I was walking past the gates when I heard a laugh. A laugh I knew too well. I slowed down without thinking. Then I stopped. There they were. My family. Standing together like nothing had ever been wrong. They looked relaxed. Happy. Not like people worried about money. Suitcases lined up neatly. New ones. The kind you buy for long trips. For a second I thought I was imagining it. That maybe my mind was filling in gaps. That maybe I was wrong. Then I saw my dad turn his head. Our eyes met. In that moment everything went quiet. Not the airport. Just me. I understood right then. That I was standing in a place I was never supposed to witness. I wish I could say I didn't look. That I turned away out of respect for myself. But I looked. Their boarding passes were in my dad's hand. Folded neatly. Held with confidence. I didn't read them on purpose. The words just showed themselves. First class. Not economy. Not basic. Not the kind you explain away with excuses. First class is a choice. A loud one. I felt my chest tighten. Not from anger. From understanding. We weren't broke. We were selective. I thought back to every maybe next time. Every we'll see. Every moment I was told to be patient. Patience suddenly felt like a joke. Like something I was taught. So others wouldn't feel guilty. My dad was smiling. Relaxed. Free. This wasn't a hard decision for him. This wasn't sacrifice. The money was tight. This trip wouldn't exist. And in that moment, I finally accepted the truth. I had been avoiding for years. My dad noticed me a second too late. I saw it on his face. The smile disappeared first. Then his eyes shifted. Like he was trying to decide what version of the story to tell. He didn't say my name right away. That hurt more than I expected. He stepped toward me slowly. As if moving carefully could undo what I'd seen. As if distance could turn back time. My stepmother looked away. Focused on her phone. My siblings stayed quiet. No one asked why I was there. No one asked how I felt. He pulled me aside just enough to look like a conversation, not enough to be private. "This isn't what it looks like," he said. I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't trust my voice. He talked about timing. About deals. About things I wouldn't understand. But I understood perfectly. He wasn't explaining. He was managing. And standing there, with my heart racing and my hands cold, I realized something painful. He wasn't sorry I was hurt. He was sorry I had seen it. He kept talking like words could fix it. Like explanations could erase facts. He said this trip was necessary. That it was planned quickly. That things had worked out last minute. I listened without interrupting. I had learned how. He said I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. Too long. Too tiring. Not my kind of place. That part stayed with me. Not because it was true, but because it was convenient. He mentioned money again. Said it was complicated. Said I'd understand someday. But money wasn't complicated. When it came to seats, upgrades, comfort, it was only complicated. When it came to me, I noticed how calm he was. No shaking hands. No hesitation. This conversation was practiced. Not rehearsed with words, but with years of choosing the same way. I wasn't being excluded by accident. I wasn't forgotten. I was being explained away. And the worst part was realizing how easy it was for him to make it sound reasonable. I stood there after he finished talking, nodding, quiet. That's what I'd always done. Made myself small enough to fit into whatever space was left. But the pain wasn't about the vacation. It wasn't about the plane, or the seat, or the place they were going. It was about the choice. Being left out once can be an accident. Being left out over and over is a decision. And standing in that airport, I finally saw the pattern clearly. I wasn't included first, then removed. I was never included at all. I thought about all the times I had lowered my expectations so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. All the times I told myself I didn't really want what I wanted. That hurts in a quiet way. The kind that doesn't show on your face, but changes how you see yourself. I realized something else too. I wasn't asking for luxury. I wasn't asking for first class. I was asking to belong. To be considered. Before decisions were made. To be mentioned. When plans were discussed. But belonging costs effort. And effort was something no one seemed willing to spend on me. That truth settled in slowly. Not with anger. With clarity. I understood then that I wasn't too expensive. I wasn't difficult. I wasn't unreasonable. I was simply optional. And once you realize you're optional in someone's life, you stop begging for space they never planned to give you. I stepped back as the boarding call was announced. First-class passengers were invited forward. They moved as a group. Relaxed. Unhurried. No scrambling. No stress. Just confidence. My dad handed over the tickets. The agent smiled. Everything went smoothly. I stood there slightly to the side, like someone who had wandered into the wrong story. For a moment I wondered if he would turn around, if he would say something. Anything. He didn't. My stepmother adjusted her bag. My siblings followed him. No one looked back. That was the moment it settled. Not sharply. Quietly. I wasn't being punished. I wasn't being taught a lesson. I was simply not part of the plan. I watched them disappear down the jet bridge. Their figures growing smaller. Then gone. People rushed past me, laughing, complaining, living their own lives. No one noticed I was standing still. I felt oddly calm. Not numb. Clear. Sometimes clarity doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It just sits with you and changes things. I understood something important right then. People don't accidentally forget what matters to them. They protect it. They plan for it. They make space for it. As the gate emptied, I picked up my bag. I didn't feel abandoned in that moment. I felt released. Released from expecting something. From people who had already shown me exactly how much space I took in their world. Hours later I saw the pictures. Bright beaches. Smiling faces. Clear skies. They had already shared their trip online. As if the world needed to know how much fun they were having. No one mentioned me. No small note. No wish you were here. Nothing. Scrolling through their posts, I felt a strange mix of anger and emptiness. It wasn't the vacation itself that stung. It was the message hidden in the images. I wasn't meant to be there. I wasn't even a thought. I remembered every "we can't afford it." Every excuse, every silent shrug when I asked. Now it all made sense. Not because money was missing, but because intention was. They had space for laughter. They had space for luxury. They had space for planning and excitement. But they didn't have space for me. And it hurt in a quiet, unshakable way. The kind of hurt that doesn't need words. It lives in your chest and stomach. And grows heavier with each post, each photo. I realized then that being left out wasn't about mistakes. It wasn't about timing. It wasn't about fairness. It was about choice. And people will spend time, energy, and money on what they truly value. That day I stopped asking for inclusion. Stopped hoping for fairness. Stopped measuring my worth by the spaces others created. Because some people will never buy you a seat in a life they don't see you in. And that realization was both painful and freeing. After seeing them bored and watching their posts, I realized something important. I had been asking for something they weren't willing to give. I stopped asking to be included. I stopped asking for fairness. I stopped asking for attention that came with conditions. For years I had measured my value by the way they treated me, by whether I was considered, invited, remembered. I thought being quiet, patient, and understanding would earn me a place. It never did. And that realization was both painful and liberating. Painful because I had counted on them. Liberating because I finally understood the truth. Belonging isn't given. It's chosen. Some people will never choose you no matter how kind, patient, or loyal you are. Some people will always put themselves first. And that's not your fault. So I stopped waiting. Stopped hoping. Stopped shrinking myself to fit into a space I was never meant to occupy. Instead, I started building my own journey. One where I didn't have to beg for a seat. One where I didn't have to justify my presence. One where my value wasn't defined by someone else's choices. I found peace in understanding that being left behind doesn't make me less. It simply makes me free. And that freedom is worth more than first class. More than attention. More than approval. Some people will never buy you a ticket. And some tickets, the ones worth taking, are the ones you get for yourself. That day I learned something important. They didn't leave me behind because they were broke. They left me behind because they could. And in that moment I stopped measuring my worth by the seats I wasn't offered. Some people will never buy you a ticket to a life they don't see you in. It's not about money. It's not about effort. It's about choice. So I stopped asking. Stopped hoping. Stopped waiting for space that was never mine. Instead, I started building my own journey. A journey where I don't have to beg for a seat. Where I choose the paths I walk. Where my worth isn't determined by anyone else. And the best part? I don't need first class to feel like I belong. I belong in the life I create for myself. Some tickets aren't about money. Some tickets are about freedom. And I finally got mine.